Much for joining us again to talk about Angel Down. I absolutely love this book. I read it earlier in the year as an early reviewer and just fell in love with it. I think it's one of the best books of 2025, if not of all time. It's amazing. So thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to talk about it. Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Yes, you're welcome. And just as a warning to everyone else, I'm a little under the weather, so if I have to cough or blow my nose, I beg forgiveness in advance.
Yeah, thanks for joining us too while you're not feeling well. We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
quite all right, thanks.
Do you mind just starting us off with talking about the inspiration behind Angel Down?
Yeah, I can try. I mean, it's a much easier question with Whalefall because I know exactly when I came up with the idea. I know where the everything kind of comes from. Angel Down is much fuzzier to me. Like I vaguely remember having the idea of an angel on the battlefield several years ago. Um, but my notebooks are filled with such ideas, and I don't know what makes one of them sort of pop out and assert itself in front of the other ones. Um, so I don't really know. I mean, there usually it's some sort of like it's some sort of like impact point between two different ideas, and that's usually what creates the book. And it could be that I was thinking about just um, war, really. Um, it's just being a fan of history and just being a reader of history. I guess that's the better way to put it. Um, it's something I think about quite a lot. So it could be that just ongoing kind of thought process clicked with this idea of an angel down on the battlefield, and maybe with the fact that I've just always been really interested in World War One in particular. Somehow it came together, uh, but it's one of the books that's the fuzziest to me in terms of how it all came together. Um, so it's a bit of a mystery, honestly. And there's a lot about this book that's a mystery to me, and that's I think it's why it's my favorite book of mine of all time. Is that there are elements of it that I don't fully understand. Um, I don't know where I came up with certain things. I don't know how I feel about the ending. I mean, all these sort of like questions are really put it are positives to me. Like I like these elements of being confounded by it. Like it's not often that I can sort of like fox myself out, like confuse myself in a way, in a good way. And this one does it more than any of the other books, and thus it is my favorite.
Yeah, I that makes sense. And I also you mentioned war and I when I was doing my reread for the book club, I really this is going to sound kind of grim of me to say, but I took a little bit of comfort in the fact that war is a cycle and that, it's kind of always never ending and we're still seeing violence and conflict within groups, but we can look back on the history of it. And so to some extent, like it is like it says in the book, like this isn't like this never ending cycle of people fighting each other and death. And in some bizarre way, there is a little bit of comfort in like kind of knowing like what's coming next for us as a society.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely hadn't thought of it in terms of comfort, but you're not wrong. There is an element of it that I can see where one could look at it and say, well, we are caught in this machine, but we do tend to get to the top of the wheel occasionally too. Like we've made it through these other things, so maybe our luck will hold out. So I understand that.
Yeah, maybe I think it's the optimist in me of knowing that we eventually will persevere, but
We need optimists out there, so that's good.
so I mean, I'm sure you're asked this a lot because the structure of Angel Down is so unique. It's one continuous sentence with no punctuation throughout, or no periods throughout. Can you talk about how that impacted your writing process, writing it this way?
Yeah, I mean, it impacted everything. I started writing the book as a normal quote unquote normal style book, but it wasn't exciting me like I did maybe 20 or 30 pages in sort of more traditional style. And it was like fine. It was like it was working, and it was sort of like it was transmitting the story, and it was the writing was decent, but it just wasn't. It didn't feel like it was living up to the premise of it, and I was disappointed in it. And every day I'd kind of like finish my work at the end of the day and just kind of be kind of like, guess that's okay, it's good enough maybe. Um, but I was restless about it, and then I started thinking about the book. And this I can remember, although I can't remember the origin very well. I very much remember the day I sat down and said, "Let's think about this. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to think about what is this book about? What are the themes? What is it trying to say?" And I started thinking about that of war, the war compulsion as sort of this wheel that once it was kicked off by World War I because it became mechanized at that point, it became sort of a self-perpetuating cycle, um, perpetual motion machine, sort of. Uh, then maybe I could mirror that in the style of the book. So I thought, well, what if the whole thing was a circle that um, flipped back on itself, and so there was no real beginning or ending to anything. So I started trying that, and within like I just wrote the first, if you want to call it a paragraph, the first paragraph, and that was it. I was like, this is definitely it. Now I'm excited about this. Um, and Yeah, but it changed everything. I mean, absolutely everything. It changes. I couldn't write a sentence like I normally would. I couldn't use commas or anything. Just I don't think I ever realized how much we rely on these little particles of sentences to create dramatic impact, like periods and capital letters and indents for the next paragraph, and all these tiny little features surrounding that. Once you remove them, it's like your bag of tricks is just empty. So you have to come up with a new bag of tricks. So it was really exciting, actually, to have lost everything, to have lost all my equipment, kind of in a way, and have to like start over. It was like that TV show Naked and Afraid. It's like suddenly I don't have anything, and I have to start from zero, and that was really exciting. Um, and it started to build its own momentum in a way that nothing else I'd written ever had. Yeah. In a way, I almost wish I could write all my books in one sentence, which I'm not going to do. Don't worry. But it just started to create such a internal rhythm, because it kind of has to keep things going when you don't have the start and stops that you can play with. And that became really exciting in its own way, because it's sort of unconscious, and it's always kind of cool when you can do something and you weren't expecting it. I didn't intend to do it. It just sort of happened magically. So yeah, changed everything, but I was happy for that change.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned rhythm because that's actually one of my next questions was that sometimes the rhythm of Angel Down, it feels almost like a march with Bagger's thoughts
Mm.
picking up and then slowing down and then the battles and then we go into with the angel. And so I'm curious, how did you balance keeping those pretty gruesome depictions of war with the depictions of the angel, but also Bagger's fondness for Arno and the flashbacks when he's talking about his dad?
I don't know. I mean, March is an interesting idea. I always thought of it. I mean, didn't think of it as anything when I was writing it, but in retrospect, I thought of it like a locomotive or a car. And when you're driving on a highway, there's kind of that boom, 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 boom between in your under your wheels as you drive. Um, and that's the kind, and you get to yourself, don't notice it. You're on the interstate, you really don't notice it, but it's
Yeah.
there. And it's sort of like powering. It's like a heartbeat, really. Um, and so then, like a heartbeat, you can speed it up or slow it down a little bit, depending on what's how fast the heart should be beating. And so that's how I think I probably approached the different level of intensity. Like if we're in the middle of a battle versus if he's having some quieter moment with Arno or one of the other men, or if he's in a sort of flashback, some of which, most of which are, a little calmer. It was just a matter of taking the pulse rate down a little bit. Um, so in a way, it was sort of like I'm exercising. It's like I'm gonna go fast here, and then I'm gonna run a mile, and then I'm gonna walk for 5 minutes and pick it back up. But there's no starts and stops. There's just sort of this increased speed, decreased speed. Um, Maybe like you're shifting on a bicycle or something. I don't know. I'm running out of metaphors here, um, but yeah, yeah. I think that's, and all this stuff isn't really I'm not really cognizant of this stuff when I'm writing it. Like I'm not thinking about this stuff. It's sort of in retrospect that I look back and wonder how it all happened. And I think that's probably as good as estimate as any, because it did feel like it was the car was driving itself in a way, and I was kind of steering and dealing with the speed of it, but the rhythm started to drive the story a little bit.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I think it works perfectly throughout. It definitely ebbs and flows, I feel like, the way it needs to, and so it keeps its tension, but it lets you have a little bit of space to breathe when you need it. The book has a beginning and ending reference to sentences and books that have no periods, and it starts off comparing war and death to those. Did you mean for this to be kind of a wink at the reader of like, hey, I know you're reading a book right now without periods?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know why I felt the need to do that exactly, but I knew it was a book that was kind of formally sort of different, um, and there's opportunities once you're sort of blasting out of normal forms to do irregular things. Uh, and I think it's sort of like in a movie when someone looks straight at the camera for an instant. And there's some movies like Ferris Bueller or something where that happens all the time, but there's other movies that are much more subtle where there'll just be like one little point in the movie where someone looks at the camera and there's like a it's very unsettling. It can be very unsettling. Um, Early cinema played with this a lot of it. There's a the Robert Mamoulian Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I think is in the 1930s maybe, does this a lot. And I saw it in college, and I've always been really, I always think about that a lot, how he used staring into the camera to really unnerving effect. Uh, so that was it's probably kind of like that, where when I'm addressing not the reader precisely, but acknowledging that I kind of see you, like I'm aware of what you're doing here, that has a chance to like drain all the tension, but it also has a chance to kind of shock a little bit and sort of implicate the reader and sort of say you're in this too, and I'm in this, and we're all in this, and it's it's a it's a just a sort of a shock tactic to sort of um, do something akin to like knowing that I know that you know that I know that you know. There's sort of like this mirror staring into mirror effect, which feels kind of like a book in a circle. Just sort of this unending sort of reflection of reader and writer and war and peace, and everything sort of like in a revolving sphere.
Yeah, I it's almost like I mean, it's almost like you're breaking that fourth wall a bit for the reader,
Yeah,
and I definitely think I mean, to me, it actually added to the tension because I feel like it did draw me in as a reader to make me feel like, okay, I'm in this too.
yeah, kind
Um,
of put you on your toes a little bit. Like, oh, is this
yeah,
going to happen again? You
yeah.
know?
Is there anything that you learned during your research for this book that surprised you?
Well, I mean, the answer is definitely yes. It's a
Yeah.
question of can I remember anything? Um, because it get all smashed up in my head over time. Um, I don't know. There were lots of little things that were always interesting to me. Um, because I'm such a research fiend, I would really get excited about small details about. Vex flamethrower or something. Yeah, I'd learn new facts about the flamethrower and get really excited about them and want to work them in somehow. There's a part where right sort of before Vex's final scene where he's slathering on this stuff called sag. And that was something I hadn't encountered in my research before. And sag is just gas spelled backwards. And this is a material, a substance that they made that soldiers could smear themselves to be more less susceptible to gas effects. But I've done some World War I research before and never ran into anything about SAG before. So that's a little thing. I think reading memoirs and stuff of the war, you really just it stops being surprising. So I don't know if I'd use the word surprising, but it really is an onslaught of just gore, really, like just the amount of the way his bodies were just ripped apart is just like I don't like anything we've seen before. Like there's sort of like pre-World War One, there's people who get shot and die, and that's there's horrible ways to die for sure. And then today, there's a lot of ways you can just be completely atomized, like just like you're just gone. But World War One is sort of in that, starting with that war, and for a while there were these, and early in World War One too to some degree. But anyway, it's like there's a period where you just don't. The soldiers just don't. We've created all these offensive weapons, and we don't have any defense. So you just have these really horrible deaths where you're just ripped to pieces in kind of unbelievable ways. And those are always surprising. Like, and it really makes you realize as a writer that there's really nothing I can come up with that is going to be beyond the pale when it comes to the kind of injuries and ways you're torn apart in war. So yeah, that was always surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, especially, World War One, there's so much new technology that the deaths were pretty horrific and things that people had not seen before. So sometimes the things that are reality are far scarier than the things we can come up with.
Yeah, for sure.
Angel Down is filled with symbolism, but I want to talk a little bit about perhaps the main characters' names. I did a little bit of research on their names, and found that they, at least for three of them, Reese, Arno, and Cyril or Bagger, their names all have meaning that can be attributed to them as characters. Can you talk about the process of naming them, and did you mean for them to have those specific meanings with their names?
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about in Whalefall, I do take the names very seriously. They're not in Whalefall. They are all direct analogs to Jonah. There's not a huge secret there, except Huey, which is a little trickier. But with this one, it's not quite as cut and dry as that was. But I never just name someone something. I do try to think of what it means. So whatever you dug up it's got a chance of being right of what I'm thinking, but there's no right really. In
Yeah.
Spellfall, there is sort of a right if you wanted to trace it back to Jonah or whatever. Um, and some of them have particular specific meanings, and some of them don't. Some of them just like feel right. These are all the names came from uh, popular British names of the era. Because when I first was kind of casting around the idea of making this book, I was originally thinking it would have to be British soldiers because uh, the U.S. was just in the war in such a minimal way, really, compared to the other allied countries. So I just found these lists of British names and was going off those, and that's neither here nor there. I'm sure a lot of those names were in the U.S. too, but that's the well from which I was drawing. Bagger, I think the only one I'll talk about specifically is Bagger, just because I changed that guy's name a million times in the first like 20 pages. I just couldn't figure out. Nothing felt right. Um, but there was something about the word Bagger, and I don't even know if that was on the list or if I think I might have just completely made that one up. It sounds like it's. I mean, there was that movie Bagger Vance, I guess. right? There, so I guess
Yeah.
that's a first name that's floating around out there. I don't know if there is anyone in the world with the last name of Bagger, probably, but in the like on the very surface level, uh, he is sort of he's burying bodies. He's not really bagging up bodies, but there is something there to the sense that he is a bagger in a way. He's um he's picking up wheelbarrowing bodies to the hole and putting them away. But there's all other things you carry in bags, and um, it just felt like a rich name for him.
Yeah, I think it fits him perfectly. I can't really imagine him with any other
Yeah,
name.
like once you find the right name, then it's like, oh, of course,
Yeah.
it has to be Bagger.
One of my favorite passages is when Bagger's seeing his father's church again, and you have this really beautiful paragraph that articulates how it feels to revisit a place from your childhood. I mean, that is usually the part of the book where I become really emotional because I think it's just a really beautiful passage. But it also feels like, to me at least, throughout the book, that Bagger's really trying to both seek and avoid closure with his father's death. Was it important for you that Bagger gets the chance to revisit the church and, in some sense, revisit his father one last time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was. I guess it is because it's in there. Um, but I don't think it was necessarily part of the plan. I knew he was going to have this sort of out of body experience, kind of, um, but I don't think I knew what it was going to be exactly. Like I had a shady inkling that I wanted there to be some sort of engine or machine at the center of the earth or center of something that was essentially turning bodies into bullets. So I could really kind of firm up that idea of we are creating our own by our own deaths. We're creating our new um, ammunition to keep this going. Um, so that was kind of there. The sort of prelude to that, where we're back in the church, uh, that just sort of happened. Um, and I don't. It's one of those things I was talking about earlier. Where I don't fully understand why I did it. Uh, it just felt right at the time, and it dovetailed with the idea of this Bible he was carrying and how it protected him from the gunshots, and would lead into him identifying where the angel's look came from the
Yeah.
illustrations, the painting. So that might I don't know, but it might have urged me to say, well, if he's going to learn these things about the Bible and the painting in the Bible, um, maybe he should go to the church. But so it's possible it was just that logical step, but it's also possible that it was just a kind of a gut feeling, um, that there was this kind of quieter space, you know, sort of. There's like a cliche phrase, right? It's like quiet as a church mouse, right, or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
and you're in war, which is the loudest place in the world. So it kind of made sense if you were going to be taken somewhere away from the cacophony of war that might be the very opposite would be a church. So it all makes some sort of sense. I don't know which element I was really pulling from though.
Well, I'm glad whatever element it was, you did it because I really love that passage. Bagger is, I feel like you reveal him like almost layer by layer. Like he starts off being portrayed as kind of like, I don't even really want to call him selfish because I don't see him that way, but he is kind of out for himself. Then you kind of, I mean, slowly reveal he has this fondness for Arno, and then you reveal about his mom, and then his, like, ultimately about his dad, and that he thought his dad was protecting him all along. What do you think it is that makes him so fond of Arno? Is it just his age? Does he see a little bit of himself in Arno?
I never know. That's a great question. I I mean, I do think I would go so far as to say Bagger is selfish. um, I wanted to set him up as a character who had some place to go, like, so I wanted him to start from a sort of bad spot where he's not really unlikable because he is sort of likable. in a kind of rapscallion sort of way, um, but someone who was sort of the opposite of the valiant soldier that you kind of imagine. But I feel like the situation his life had, the sort of turns his life had taken, had made him into someone who was alone and had to find a way to forge, to make the best of being alone, and to convince himself that being alone was what he wanted. It wasn't what he wanted. It's just that's how his life went. He didn't have any parents now, so he was going to be alone. So what do you do if you're doomed to be alone? You try to tell yourself that oh, I want it to be this way. Um, but I think when we touch on a little bit about how he's able to charm people with his sort of magic tricks and attract women, and like there's clearly a charm to this guy, and he is in a weird way attracted to people. Like he keeps putting himself, he keeps waving a flag about how alone he is and how great that is, but he keeps entering these situations where he's filled with in these gambling halls and boats, and he's filled with people. So I think he does. I think he likes people as much as anyone else. He's just had to convince himself he doesn't. And I think when you rebuff someone else, which he probably did to almost every soldier he met, they take the hint and they're like, okay, well, you're an asshole. I don't want to interact with you. But I think with Arno, being a kid, he doesn't take the hint. And he's like, he might be hurt at the moment, but he just comes back the next day and says, hey, Bagger, hey, do you hear about this cool thing I wrote? And he's just like this pest who just isn't getting the message that you need to stay away from me. And by not getting the message, Bagger's kind of resolve wears down a little bit. It's like, oh, fine. And then because he really hasn't had any human interaction in any kind of meaningful way, he just starts to value it a little bit.
Yeah.
Secretly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Overtly, he still pretends he doesn't like it, but he does.
Yeah, I really enjoy their relationship and kind of like their banter, and even like towards the end when he has to be kind of mean to him to get him to do what he needs him to, and he feels bad about it. I don't know. It feels
Yeah,
special.
yeah, I agree.
I want to talk about Vec really quickly before we open it up from questions for everyone else, because Vec, it feels like a complicated character to me. I think on both of my reads now of Angel Down, he almost feels somewhat like, I mean, it's hard for me to describe. He feels somewhat like a moral compass, but also at the same time not. I mean, he is the depiction of PTSD is very real. And then when he talks about, they're gonna put me through electric shock. I mean, it's heartbreaking. He has some of the most beautiful and profound passages on race and feeling different because he's black. But then we have the lighter moments with him with the horse head, and but then he meets like this kind of tragic end. So I'm just curious, kind of your perspective on Vec and the kind of the purpose that he serves in Angel Down.
Yeah, yeah, I like Beck a lot. It's and I wouldn't say that about the other soldiers. But when I was coming up with like who the other soldiers would be, it was a very means to an end type calculation. It was sort of like, what are the different ways people could exploit this angel? So, you know, Goodspeed wants to exploit it financially, and Popkin sexually, or whatever. So there was a the characters were drawn around the reasons they would want to exploit the angel. Vec is a little more complicated, uh, but at the end of the day, he is still one of the exploiters, because he does want. Uh, the last thing I would want is to somehow carve out Vec to be some innocent among them. Like there are no innocents in the book. Arno, you could maybe make an argument for. Um, and his flaw here is vengeance. It's very understandable. Like you totally understand why he wants vengeance on it, but he's ready to just blow up everything. Like he's ready to blow up the world. Because of what's happened to him. And again, just because we can understand it and sympathize and empathize with what he's trying to do doesn't mean it's right. Um, but yeah, he's far more complicated than the others, and it's hard not to like him. And so there's that kind of spectrum of someone you really hate, like Popkin, and then it kind of goes backward to Arno, probably on the far other side. And yeah, my favorite thing in the book is him and the horse heads. It's another thing where I don't know, I don't understand it either. Like I I wanted him to somehow deal with his shell shock by hiding in a way, and I could have done that by just having him put some sort of helmet over his head or something like that. But one of the main things that I think about when I think about World War One is, you know, it wasn't just mass casualty of humans. Like the amount of horses that died is just monumental, like staggering amounts of horses. I don't have the figures. It might be in the book. I'm not sure, but I don't remember what the number is, but it's like unbelievable. And dead horses were just everywhere across Europe. Uh, so everywhere you went, dead horses. So I thought I want to keep remembering that there's horses everywhere and keep talking about the horse bodies. And then somehow Beck decides to put a horse head on. And there's something kind of like it's my favorite kind of spooky because it's right on the edge of funny. And I think like that's always to me like the greatest kind of eerie because it's like it's risky. You risk laughter or nervous laughter anyway. And so therefore it's kind of the most daring kind of uh haunting kind of imagery to play with because you just don't know how it's going to read to people. Um so yeah, I don't fully understand that either, but I like it a lot. Um it's my kind of my favorite detail in the whole book.
Yeah, it's very unnerving. And I think Bagger mentions this, but he's like, you can't really trust a guy, or like you can't like you don't really know what to expect from a guy who's gonna do this, and feels very true.
Yeah, it's a true statement.
I'd love to open it up from questions from everyone else, if that's okay with you.
Yep, let's do it.
Awesome. Feel free to ask away, take yourself off mute.
Hi there. I love this book. You know, just want to get that out there. It's fantastic. I'm curious if subsequent drafts of it, editing it, was any different from sort of editing some of your
Oh
other
yeah.
books because of the structure. Like, did that
Yeah.
just add this whole other dimension to?
Great question. Great question. Yes, very different. I would say that the first draft of this book was felt faster and better than most books because you're on the stream of consciousness roller coaster, and I'm just flying. Like once you get
Mhm.
going, once I drop into it during the morning when I sit down, you're just going, and you're going so fast that I'm just kind of like I just won't question anything. I'm just gonna let this ball roll down the hill, um, which is great because you really do create this rhythm. The downside to that was the hardest edit I've ever had.
Mm.
Uh, like the paper edit because I finish and then I do sort of an edit on the computer where I'm just refining things, and then I print it out and I do an edit on paper because for some reason you just catch different things on paper. I don't know why, but I always do. And it's just like page after page of nothing but red pencil. Like, and a lot of that was clarity because I'm so much kind of vibing on this rhythm and this speed and these images and that what was actually happening physically in space and being able to track what was going on was getting lost a lot. Um, so yeah, editing was it wasn't really that different than any other editing. There was just a lot more of it. It was just there were no pages that survived even close to intact. Didn't mean I was doing anything huge structurally. I think generally that was okay, but every single sentence it was just new things. So it was hard.
I know you've spoken about, you love sentences and that's kind of like defining, but with this being one sentence, did you sort of translate that to phrases or clauses or paragraphs instead of
Yeah, just
sentences?
those little chunks.
Right. Yeah.
You can just
Yeah.
call them paragraphs, but yeah, I would. I guess that's the sort of unit in which I was digesting them.
Awesome. And thank you.
Hi. Hi. I just have to say again, favorite book of the year. Nothing will. It was amazing. This is like, I don't know how you did this. I am no writer, so whatever, but it's incredible. And people are like, oh, one sentence. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like it doesn't read that way. I did have a question like about Bagger and his dad. Like, did you consciously set out to make this kind of like a, a him coming to terms with his dad kind of thing? Because I just thought that that part of the story just, I mean, it's why Whalefall, just like I just connected so much with
Yeah.
that Whalefall. Like it was just such a beautiful part of the story to me. And was it a conscious thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you talked about it already, but
No, that's fine. No, it wasn't really. The last thing I was really hoping to do after Whalefall was write another story about dad and his son. So that wasn't really in my plan at all. I just found myself dragged toward it, like almost like accidentally. Uh, I started wanting him to have this sort of church background in a way, and I think I was starting to think about the Bible and the painting in it. And then it kind of made sense that okay, well maybe it would, there wouldn't his mom wouldn't have been a preacher, so it's like well maybe his dad was a preacher, and I think it kind of from there kind of led to well maybe his dad was really selfless in a way and went over to Europe, instead of trying to dodge the draft,
mhm.
like Bagger actually actively went over there, and before you knew it, I was writing about another dad. But just kind of like with Whalefall, I just tried not to doubt it too much, and it's like oh, I'm just gonna let it happen. Um, my next book has no dads in it at all, I promise. Uh, but yeah, it just felt right, so I went with it, and it felt different enough from Whalefall. Although even if it wasn't, I would have went with it anyway. Like I just there's I think I don't know if we talked about this for the wealth conversation, but one thing about Whalefall is I knew the setting was going to be so bizarre and unfamiliar that I wanted people to have a very solid understanding of the relationship. So it's something that everyone could understand.
Mhm.
Um, and there's the scenario in Angel Down isn't like inside of a whale. Like people are going to get it. They understand what forests look like and fields look like. But the format was going to be so challenging that I also probably thought I do want people to sort of be able to grab on to the central relationship again relatively easily and not make it something that's too esoteric or uh,
Right.
it's not his girlfriend's father's cousin. I wanted something very very sort of clear cut, um, because there's so many things in this book that aren't clear cut at all. So I don't know how much of that really went into it, but it's an answer.
Well, I'm glad you did that because it was just like Whalefall. It was my favorite part of the book. Like it just I would just spontaneously cry at like
No,
weird spots, and it was beautiful. So
thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support. Thank you.
always here.
So I kind of want to go back to the concept of confusion. I know at the beginning you talked about, like this book kind of confused me as I was writing it. I think it confused a lot of us who were reading it, just like as it was going, not the structure, but just the concept of everything happening all at once. But I think that like that was the point, right? Like war is confusing. Like one minute you're being blown up, the next minute you're having to like eat dinner with your friends, or the idea of trauma is confusing. Like all of these things are confusing. But this book, I think a lot of times like I'll finish a book, I'm like, okay, like I liked it or I didn't like it. This one I had to like sit with. I had to be like, how do I feel
Yeah,
about this book? It really gives you this like overwhelming feeling of like what do I think, and you have to really sit with it, especially the last chapter. I had to reread that like three or four different times because I was like am I missing it? So specifically I guess with that last chapter, I mean, was that intentional? Do you want us to sit and think like, so what literally happened here. Was this all like a fever dream of war, or was this like a true experience that this person had?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right reaction because I have the same one. I mean, I'm still sitting with the end of it, and that's how I think I knew that it was the right ending. Is that
Mm.
um, I still don't know how to feel about it. Like I feel like I have a good sense of what happened at the end. Like it reads. I mean, I know. I mean, I sort of wrote it, so I get it. I understand what happens, but even if you had a crystal clear sense of what happens in that last chapter, as I think I do, uh, that doesn't really help any. It's still I don't know how to feel about it. Like I don't think it's a fever dream at all. I can go that far. Like I feel like what happened really happened, and now we're sort of seeing this glimpse of the future, and then uh, yeah, then there's sort of an upending of what the angel even is. Is it something that is completely opposite from an angel? And if so, if that's the case, what was it doing here? What was it trying to do with these men? What point was it trying to make? Uh, and so that's a lot of questions. That's a lot of questions, and it is a book that I think begs to be fretted over a little bit. Like I don't, even forgetting the angel for a second. There's the whole element of Bagger's last lines. I think those last lines where he's like, "I regret nothing." Like, how do we feel about that? Like, I don't know. Like, should he regret nothing? That he went and saved this kid at the potential expense of uh, the ongoing nature or ongoing creation of war. Like, that sounds like something he should totally regret. Um, but would we have done anything different? I don't know. It's and particularly if you ever learned that it wasn't, or if you ever really fully understood that it wasn't, the angel wasn't what he thought it was. And if that's true, does that make his non-regret actually make sense? So these are things like I think I would have to sit down and analyze it like a reader, like forget that I had written it and sit down and like write an essay about it and figure out, kind of put in line everything that's in the book and figure out how I feel about it.
Mhm.
And I love that. I love that. I don't think there's anything else I've written where I'm just completely, I don't know what to think about it, you know? And that's my favorite reaction to anything. And I don't think that's necessarily most people's favorite reaction to anything. That's a pretty unpopular reaction. Ending, the kind of ending you don't know, understand. We might all be on board here, but generally, if there's a movie with an ending that no one understands, people hate it, and that's probably the case for most readers too. Um, but I love it. I love it. And movies, art, whatever. I like just being troubled by something and having to continually grind away at it. And I'm still doing that. So at some point, I might figure it out, and that'll be a sad day because I like not understanding it totally, or not. I understand what happened. I just don't understand how to feel about it, and that's like
Mhm.
that's humans. I mean, that's
Yeah.
human nature. Like people make illogical choices and decisions more than they make logical ones.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, so going into that concept as well of the ending being something that maybe some people don't like, as far as like how do you feel about it? Some people want a direct answer, some people want to sit and think. Did you get pushback from like your editors on like the structure or the ending, or what was that process like?
I sure worried that I was going to. Um, I did not tell my editor it was all one sentence. Like she she knew what the basic plot idea was, but not much. I'd written about not even a full page synopsis. This is sort of like a two-thirds a page rough idea. That's all she knew until I turned it in. And normally when I turn in books, I feel really good about them. Um, I feel like I nailed this, and I'm almost always wrong, but like when I turn it in, I'm feeling good about it. And this was the first book since my very first book, so that's, let's see, 24 books ago, that I was nervous
Mm.
because She didn't know I'd written it one sentence. She didn't know any craziness of the format or what was going to happen or how it was going to end. And it was the first time we'd worked together. This was a new editor for me, so I really didn't. I just was like, I don't know what she's going to think about this. And I really, for the first time since the beginning of my career, I didn't know if I had written something really cool or completely unpublishable. Like I was just, I just didn't know, and I know that, like, intellectually, I know that's a good thing. Like, it's a good to have that feeling, to feel like you're not just running around on the track that you already understand. But in practice, it was kind of nerve wracking. But to her great credit, no, there was no pushback at all on the format or the ending. So I am now a very ardent fan of this editor. Because once that happened, I was like, oh man, she is down for whatever, wherever weird places I want to go with these books. So I'm very excited to keep working with her for sure.
Yeah. I think the format definitely made, I think without that formatting, without that structure, it wouldn't have felt as
Yeah,
impactful. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Good.
I have a semi-related question to that when it comes to your publisher, because I feel like Angel Down's really outside of the bounds of any specific genre. I mean,
Yeah.
fits with horror, you could see sci-fi, historical, lit fic. Did you have any input as to what the best genre to market Angel Down should be, or is that kind of outside of your realm?
No, it's not something real. And they consult with me on everything, but I don't know that we ever came up with a solution. I mean, Wellfall was the same problem. Like, it
Yeah.
straddles so many different genres, or doesn't straddle any of them. I don't know. That it's a challenge because you don't what readers really like, and again, I'm accepting all of us, maybe, uh, is knowing what the heck they're picking up. Um, and Wellfall shelved all over the place, and Angel Down, I'm imagining, is shelved all over the place. Like, I don't know where you put it. Is it historical fiction? Probably not. Is it sci-fi? I don't know. Is it horror? It doesn't really have that flavor of horror. I don't know.
Thriller.
Thriller was always a nice catch-all. Like, that would have made the most sense for Wellfall, certainly.
That's where it is at our store. So
I looked down. Who was saying that? Oh, you have it in Thriller?
yep.
Which
And
one?
well, Angel Down, and then Whalefall is in sci-fi. I don't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's all confusing. But yeah, Thriller's kind of the safest bet, but it certainly doesn't have the pros of most thrillers. So I don't know. I don't know. I know it's a tough. It makes things harder because you don't know who exactly to promote to. Um, I think there were some conversations, sort of like, all right, do we prioritize kind of genre audiences? Do we prioritize the literary fiction, for lack of a better term, audiences? Ultimately, I don't know what they did. At some point, I just dropped out of that conversation. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's it's a problem with my books, and that's not going to change. But I can't worry about that stuff. It's not a concern I need to have, and I'll just file that with all the other stuff I don't pay attention to, and just keep writing stuff, and hopefully it'll just find its people. And sometimes it really doesn't, and sometimes it does. So you kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I don't see it as a problem because I feel like it actually makes it a little bit more accessible because it doesn't have
You
because it
can,
fits in the bounds. You can recommend it to so many different people. Like I've recommended this book to my father-in-law who would never pick up a horror book, but he would pick up a book
right?
like Angel Down. So, I mean, I think that's a testament to you as a writer that it does kind of fall outside those bounds of genre. It's not relying on specific tropes. I think it makes it more accessible as a book.
Yeah, it can. I think the discoverability is more challenging, but you're right. It does, like, once some people start discovering it and can recommend it went away. It's like um, my sick brain is making me grasp for words, but it's like high risk, high reward. It's like you
Yeah.
might find nobody, but you might find everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you'll find everyone though, especially
Yeah,
with Angel Town.
sure.
Um, I also wanted to ask you really quickly about just Bagger's role and the fate of the other soldiers with Rochambeau. Did you always have it planned that Bagger was going to kind of play puppet master with their fates and how their demise would come to be?
Yeah, it did. That was part of the architecture of the book. Um, and I thought it was strange. It was another one of those sort of on the edge things where I was like, is this just going to come off as utterly ridiculous, or is this going to be kind of cool? Um, yeah, and I wanted him to be an inadvertent puppet master. Like he's just playing to win. He doesn't know that um, to the angel's interpreting this as this is what you want to happen. Like, oh, I'm gonna follow your lead on this. And so he can be kind of horrified later to learn that the angel was just doing what he was signaling to do. But yeah, that was part of the plan. It was one more thing that I was kind of nervous about because I didn't know if it was silly or not. But
I think it's really cool. I think it's neat, especially when he realizes it, to look back on like, oh wait, that is kind of what happened to them. Especially because I think at one point he says like, I haven't asked for anything, but he has unknowingly asked for some deaths on his behalf. So
yeah, right.
Can I just ask a quick question about the Whalefall set? Because I saw you went there as it was wrapping sort of main production. What was it like to sort of be there at the end of that portion of the making of it?
It was really great. Yeah. Um, we ended the last few weeks were doing tank stuff. So they had built this big tank, really big tank, and then they had this kind of circular sort of lip where all the crew was. So we were all up there kind of just staring down at the tank, and they had all these divers and the actor in there. And it was really neat. They had sort of they would speak to the actors and the divers through a hydrophone. So it's the same thing that in the book Mitt has. That's how you send out sonar to listen for whale sound, you know. So they would speak into this mic, and the people under the water could hear it.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then the divers and the actor would respond with hand signals, basically, like you might say to the camera person, we want you more to Jay's left and down. And so then they would do it, and then they would kind of do this to say, well, where's my eye line? Am I looking here? Am I looking here? Am I looking there to there? So it's a lot of very technical, detailed stuff. But that's not what you're asking. How was it?
That's interesting.
Yeah. But it was great. Everyone was seemed excited to have been a part of it. I heard that a lot, that it was a special project for a lot of people. I think they're also excited to get the hell out of there. Like they had been in the stage for months. And it's like not like a lot of movies where you're going from location to location. Or it was just a lot of time in a lot of concentrated small spaces. Working with a lot of sets that were highly unique and difficult to master. So it was a good atmosphere for sure. Everyone was happy to finish, but happy to be involved. And I got so many gifts. I
saw that post, like they
every
loaded you up with
department,
gifts. Yeah.
every department gave me something. Yeah. I mean, if you saw the post, I can bring over something though. Let me pick one. So, like the people who built the tank, they brought over a box, and they were like, "Oh, this is metal from the tank." So I just thought it was gonna be a hunk of metal, but it's this really cool Like,
Oh wow,
like this is the metal from the tank, but they also kind of turned it into something pretty cool.
that's fantastic.
And yeah, everyone's just so talented. Every department just, I don't know if this is normal in movies. It probably is, where every department sort of makes something for the other people in their department, typically. But they all made one for me for various things. I ran out of shelf space real fast. But it was great. It was really nice to be there. I'm glad I was there for the end. That way I could pretend that I'd been there the whole time and really deserved to celebrate when I really hadn't at all.
Do you feel any guilt about what this actor has been put through over the last kind of couple months?
No, Austin seemed pretty cool about it. I think in general, he was pretty into it. He definitely, I think, had lost the ability to understand what was going on to some degree. Like I would always say, you know, I saw him every day. Like, hey, how you doing? And he was just like, I don't know. Like I don't know. Like he barely knew which direction was up anymore. Literally, because he's diving all the time.
I'll wait for the movie. I think it is going to be something special. Yeah.
It'll be unique, that's for sure.
I'm
I
very
think
excited.
it's cool that Josh and Austin were just in. I just saw Weapons last week, and I was like, "That is so cool that they're now in that movie." Which is, I cannot wait for that movie. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it was funny that they were cast, and then they had that funny scene together, and
Yeah,
very
yeah.
different movie, but yeah, it was fun to see him.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us tonight, especially not feeling well. We really appreciate it. It was such a pleasure to be able to talk about this book with you. And looking forward to your next book and also your graphic novel that's coming out in a few months. In a month,
Yes.
October?
Yeah, October.
Yeah.
I guess that's a month. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited. It looks great. I'm really that cover is amazing. So can't wait to have that in my hands.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining. We will see you in October for our next meeting.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me twice.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.